banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Race to Power. My name is Mohammed Saleh. And on the show today, an American judge has temporarily refused to block Elon Musk's DOGE from accessing Education Department student data. And in Germany, the far-right AfD leader Alex Weidel, who's on the ascendant, has accused the German leadership of not being able to create a distinction between asylum and immigration. We'll be getting you all of these details, but let's first start with a big story from the United States of America, where under Donald Trump's presidency, the Elon Musk-led Department of Government Efficiency is surrounded in a legal drama. And amidst the cases that were heard on Monday, DOGE appears to have got some relief in at least one of the lawsuits. Now, this is a case that pertains to data access, where a US judge has temporarily refused to block Elon Musk's DOGE from accessing Education Department's data for the students. Now, the order comes as a small but substantial legal victory for the American billionaire. The case was filed by attorney generals of the Democratic states that are trying to block DOGE's orders and to protect federal agencies against the overhaul being carried out to slash public spending. In another suit that's been filed by New Mexico and 14 other states last week, the White House has submitted a statement to clarify the role of Elon Musk under the current administration. And this is where it gets interesting. Now, in the court filing, the White House states, and I quote, Elon Musk is not an official employee of the Department of Government Efficiency and has no formal authority to make government decisions. The document further goes on to clarify that Elon Musk is a senior advisor to the president and has no formal authority to make government decisions himself. Now, the suit was filed on Thursday last week at a district court in Washington, D.C. against Elon Musk and President Donald Trump. The prosecutors allege that Musk's actions are unconstitutional since his appointment was not approved by the American Congress. And our correspondent Susan Tehrani has been tracking the story very closely for us and has sent us this report from New York. Let's listen in.
A U.S. judge is expected to rule in the next 24 hours regarding a lawsuit by 13 Democratic states' attorney generals. The lawsuit aims to block Elon Musk's DOGE team, appointed by President Trump, from accessing government systems, as well as firing employees as well at major agencies. Now, the states argue that Elon Musk and DOGE is using data to dismantle initiatives and direct mass filings, putting educational and other programs at risk. The judge expressed doubt about the state's request for a restraining order against DOGE, but acknowledged the allegations. Meanwhile, another judge in Washington, D.C. declined a request by unions and other NGOs to temporarily block the DOGE team from accessing records at the Department of Labor, Health and Human Services, as well as the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau as well. Many of the judges have not yet ruled in DOGE cases. Susan Tafrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Now, a series of important meetings are taking place, having some wide-ranging geopolitical ramifications. Let's, of course, begin with the most important meeting. About an hour ago, the American and the Russian officials concluded the crucial talks in Saudi Arabia over the future of Ukraine. Now, the talks took place in the Saudi capital, Riyadh, in the absence of Ukraine. Now, this unprecedented gathering, orchestrated less than a month into Trump's presidency, leaves the European allies watching nervously from the sidelines. Now, inside the Diriyah Palace, the atmosphere was pretty tense as the American Secretary of State Marco Rubio faced off with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov across the table, flanked by the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and the Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff.
I think diplomacy ultimately is based on actions. It's based on commitments that are kept. So I think I came away today convinced that they are willing to begin to engage in a serious process to determine how and how quickly and through what mechanism can an end be brought to this war. Whether we can ultimately reach that outcome will obviously depend on every side in this conflict's willingness to agree to certain things.
Now, the Russian delegation and Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Yuri Yushkov, who is the foreign policy advisor to Putin, he previously had served as Russia's ambassador to the United States. The Saudi Foreign Minister Prince and National Security Advisor were present at the meeting. Now, Moscow, of course, seized the moment to raise some fresh demands, calling for the NATO military alliance to formally withdraw to its 2008 membership promise to Ukraine.
It is worth noting that the refusal to accept Kyiv into NATO now is not enough. The alliance must disavow its Bucharest promises of 2008, according to which Ukraine was guaranteed membership in the North Atlantic Bloc in the future. Otherwise, this problem will continue to poison the atmosphere on the European continent.
Now, following the talks mediated by the Saudis, the Russian officials declared the negotiations had gone pretty well. Now, Kremlin says that a Putin-Trump meeting appears unlikely next week. Its conditions, however, were discussed. The Kremlin has also emphasized that Vladimir Putin will determine when further contact on Ukraine would begin. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in Ankara, meeting with the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He was excluded from the discussions that could determine his nation's fate. European leaders hastily gathered in Paris, grappling with this radical American pivot. Their primary fear that Trump could rush into a deal with Putin that not only ignores European security interests, but also effectively rewards Russia's aggression, potentially emboldening future threats against their neighboring nations.
The European countries have to play a leading part in that guarantee, but require a backstop from the US, because in the end it is only the US that can provide the deterrence to Putin that will prevent him attacking again.
All right, so that is what the European leaders are saying, that it is only the United States that can provide a credible deterrence to Russia. Now, EU finance ministers, on the other hand, are meeting in Brussels to discuss greater flexibility in budgetary rules to allow for more military spending. A shock switch in policy from the United States has prompted calls for Europe to ramp up its own defense capacities through higher spending. All right, now to give us more perspective on this, we're joined by Mr. Dov Zakheim, who's a former Undersecretary of Defense in George W. Bush's administration and is currently a senior advisor at Center for Strategic and International Studies. He's joining us live on this broadcast. Mr. Zakheim, this is a pivotal moment in the Russia-Ukraine war. For the first time since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, The Russians and the Americans have met. Interestingly, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was kept out of this meeting. In your assessment, how well or how, interestingly, has this meeting between the Russians and the Americans gone?
Well, for a start, the Russians seem very happy, which makes the Europeans unhappy and Zelensky even less happy. The Russians, first of all, accomplished what Mr. Putin wanted, which was to deal directly with the United States over the head of Ukraine. And Europeans I've spoken to, and not just Europeans, many people in Washington worry about whether this is a reprise of 1938, where Chamberlain, the Prime Minister of Britain, and Daladier, the Prime Minister of France, cut a deal with Hitler, basically to give away part of Czechoslovakia. Within a year, Czechoslovakia disappeared, was conquered by the Germans, and beyond that, World War II started. This is the nightmare that bothers the Europeans, and it bothers many in Washington. Zelensky, of course, is terrified that a deal will be cut, that he'll lose part of his country. The Russians are, as you just reported, are demanding that the United States and NATO withdraw the commitment to bring Ukraine into NATO that was made in 2008. That, of course, would eliminate the kind of deterrent that you just showed Defense Minister Healy talking about. Mm-hmm. So this is preliminary. Everybody says it's exploratory. Ultimately, the deal will be made between Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump. We all know that. Whether Zelensky will even have a say is an open question.
Right.
The Europeans have to do more. Everybody agrees about that.
But at this moment, looking at how things are panning out, the Europeans are feeling betrayed. You mentioned that there could be a deal that could be done above the heads of Volodymyr Zelensky and the other leaders within Europe. But considering that a deal can only be struck between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, what do you think could be a meeting point for these two leaders? And would that mean a betrayal of Europe by the United States of America that has given this overarching umbrella of security for Europe under the NATO military alliance?
Well, first of all, the leader of the delegation, Senator Rubio, was actually an instigator of congressional legislation to keep us in NATO. He's committed to NATO. He's committed to Europe. So is Mr. Waltz. The advisors around Trump, in other words, are committed to staying in Europe. And Mr. Trump has not said he's going to pull out of Europe. I mean, we have to be very clear about what he said. He said he wants to pull about 20,000 troops out. That leaves 80,000 troops. That's still a lot of troops. It's more than the entire British Army. So we have to be very, very careful about what we predict. We know what Mr. Trump has said. Right. We also know that Trump lays out ideas and then sees whether they will stick or not. He's absolutely right that Europe is not spending enough, that it's spent decades basically relying on the United States to defend Europe while Europe spends money on social welfare. Defense secretary after defense secretary and president after president have said this is not right. Mr. Obama was the one who coined the phrase free riders, and he was talking about Europe.
Right.
So in that respect, Trump is absolutely right. They have to spend more. I think what they're trying to do with the EU to somehow create a separate defense budget approach is right to do so that they don't get caught up in their bureaucracy. There's a lot that they have to do. Should they do that, and given that Mr. Trump has not said he's getting out of Europe, I think people should be very careful about predicting gloom and doom. Should they worry? Yes, but there's a lot they need to do.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Zakhaim, for joining us and getting us that perspective there.
Thank you so much.
Now, thousands of people across the United States carried out marches against Donald Trump on President's Day. They were demonstrating against what they call DOGE chief Elon Musk's unchecked power in Donald Trump's administration. Take a look.
They are taking us down.
My main hope is that the Congress will come to their senses to push back against this anarchy and to turn things around.
Now, Germany is headed for early elections in just about 5 days from now. And ahead of the critical polls, Chancellor candidates from 4 of the biggest parties took questions from an audience just 2 days after a televised debate. The Chancellor Olaf Scholz and leader of the Social Democrat Party Olaf Scholz took questions on immigration, which, remember, is a hotly debated topic in Germany at the moment. Now, the incumbent stressed the need to ensure that refugee protection is not impacted by a crackdown on immigration.
And at the same time, it must be the case that a country that is open, that offers protection to refugees, for example, and should continue to offer protection in the future, always has the management of irregular migration under control. And that is something that I am committed to ensuring.
Now, on the other hand, the far-right AfD leader Alice Weidel has accused the state of not being able to create a distinction between asylum and immigration, blaming Scholz's government for illegal immigration.
I'm in favor of the principle that we must make a fundamental distinction between asylum and immigration. The state has not done that so far. Everything is mixed up and we have had illegal migration into our country for 10 years. What I stand for is to stop this illegal migration and that we must separate ourselves from the people who are in our country illegally and who have committed criminal offences.
An interesting bit from Monday's question answer with the German citizens was the conversation around a possible coalition post-election. Now, Olaf Scholz and his political rival, the CDU leader Friedrich Merz, have dismissed the formation of an alliance. Now, both leaders appear to believe that the voters will actually hand a decisive mandate to one or the other party. Listen in.
Ministerium würden Sie Olaf Scholz geben?
Also das ist auch eine kühne These, Herr Klamroth, die Sie hier verkünden. Jetzt wählen wir erstmal am nächsten Sonntag und dann entscheiden wir darüber, wer die Regierung führt und wer sie möglicherweise mitgestaltet.
Kann ja durchaus sein, dass Sie beide in einer Regierung landen.
Das halten wir, glaube ich, beide für relativ unwahrscheinlich.
Das sehe ich auch so. Also wo er recht hat, hat er recht. Ich will Kanzler bleiben, er will es werden und die Bürgerinnen und Bürger entscheiden.
Now, the country's economy minister and the Green Party chancellor candidate Robert Habeck took the questions on issues of climate. But he also lashed out at the current US administration for interfering in Germany's elections. Now, Habeck has accused Elon Musk and Donald Trump of using their combined power to target Germany. The German citizens head to polls on Sunday, February 23rd to elect 630 members of the parliament. Early elections are being held after the three-way coalition government led by Olaf Scholz collapsed in November last year. The Chancellor also lost a vote of confidence in December, triggering early elections. Now, the ousted Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, has vowed to come back to the country and get justice for those killed during the July-August student protests. This during a virtual interaction with the widows of the policemen who were killed during the July-August student protests. She described their deaths as part of a broader effort to destabilize the country. Now, the ousted Prime Minister accused Muhammad Yunus of protecting those responsible for violence. Now, Sheikh Hasina has rubbished claims that many were killed in the police firing, adding that the officers had shown maximum restraint and only acted when they were attacked. Also, the ousted Prime Minister highlighted as to how mob violence continues in Bangladesh under Yunus's government. She drew the conclusion that he was simply either unable or unfit to run the government. Further, Sheikh Hasina has alleged that Muhammad Yunus had orchestrated the burning of her ancestral home in Dhaka. She called it his plan. In an exclusive interview to WION, Bangladesh's foreign advisor Tawheed Hussain has said that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's house was actually burnt as a reaction to Sheikh Hasina's statement. Listen in.
I would not justify this, but it happened sort of as a reaction to the incendiary statements of Sheikh Hasina, who is now living in India. I would like to see a situation in which, when she is staying in India, she keeps quiet and allows things to settle down, both for Bangladesh and for our relations.
Now, the swearing-in ceremony of the Delhi Chief Minister is scheduled for the 20th of February. But the Bharatiya Janata Party, interestingly, is yet to announce the name as to who will be taking oath as the next Chief Minister of Delhi. Now, according to the latest report, the Chief Minister pick will be announced after a BJP Legislative Party meeting on the 19th of February. And once consensus is reached on the name, the focus will then shift to Raj Bhavan, where the BJP legislature party leaders, along with other MLAs, will stake claim before the governor to form a new government. Meanwhile, preparations are on full swing for the grand oath-taking ceremony of the Delhi Chief Minister. The top brass of BJP state leadership is overseeing the arrangements of the events that would have presence of the BJP leadership, including that of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah, UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, and more than 50 high security leaders. The frontrunners for Delhi's top job include the likes of Parvesh Singh Verma, the son of the former Delhi Chief Minister Sahib Singh Verma. Remember, he had defeated the AAP convener and the former three-time Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal from the New Delhi constituency. Another potential candidate is Vijendra Gupta, the BJP's leader of opposition in the outgoing Delhi Assembly. The names of the party's state president, Virendra Sachdeva, and the first-time MP and veteran BJP leader, Sushma Swaraj's daughter Bansuri Swaraj, are also doing the rounds. India has named Gyanesh Kumar as the new Chief Election Commissioner. The appointment was made hours after the meeting of the selection committee, which comprises of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah, and the leader of the opposition Rahul Gandhi. Now, Gyanesh Kumar, the senior most of the two election commissioners, will succeed Rajiv Kumar, who will be demitting office on the 18th of February. As the next Chief Election Commissioner, who would be in charge of elections in at least 5 states. The opposition ruled Bengal, Kerala and Tamil Nadu, and the NDA ruled Bihar and Assam. In the immediate future, the election in Bihar is due later this year. The rest, of course, take place in 2026. Gyanesh Kumar, who will stay in the post till the 26th of January 2029, will altogether steer the election through 20 assembly elections. Now, elections for the President and Vice President in 2027 and preparations for the 2029 Lok Sabha elections will also happen in his tenure. Now, Gyanesh Kumar is an alumnus of IIT Kanpur and Harvard University, a 1988 batch IAS officer from the Kerala cadre. He held the post of Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs in 2019 and had helped draft the bill that scrapped Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir. In 2020, as Additional Secretary in the Home Ministry, he had overseen some significant matters related to the Supreme Court case on the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya, including managing documents that contributed to the creation of the Ram Janmabhoomi Tirth Kshetra Trust. He also held positions in the Ministry of Defence, Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs and Ministry of Cooperation. Rahul Gandhi had given a note of dissent to Gyanesh Kumar's appointment. Now, Congress, of course, is objecting to the selection as the law on appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner has been challenged in the Supreme Court. The matter is scheduled for hearing on Saturday. The party has alleged that the government wants control of the Election Commission and is not concerned about its credibility. Now, thousands of people gathered in Libya to mark the 14th anniversary of the country's uprising against the then leader Muammar Gaddafi. The ruler was, remember, killed by the rebel forces in 2011 at the height of the civil war between the forces that were loyal to Gaddafi and the rebel-backed forces by the United States and the NATO military alliance that was seeking to overthrow Muammar Gaddafi. On Monday, the citizens gathered in the Martyrs Square in Tripoli to watch fireworks and also a military parade. Take a look at these images.
The joy of the Libyans is indescribable, but you can see it in their eyes as they wave the flags here in this square. There are no words to describe this happiness. Can you describe them? In the 80s and 90s, there were only portraits of Muammar Gaddafi here.
And with that's a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching.
Know more, understand better, think ahead.